Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Amy Souza, and many of you may know me from my activist work at Known Heretic on Twitter and YouTube and Instagram. You may also know me as Amy Souza of Little Red Reverberations, where I do work focusing on instinct, intuition, sense perceptions, boundary setting, and the experiential lessons that we learn from enacting our creative imaginations. Today's video essay is going to focus on the indoctrination of kids from gender ideology. I am going to specifically be focusing on what is happening to our kids in schools at this time. And as well, I am going to be talking about the safeguarding instincts that kids naturally have and how we can encourage them in their own safeguarding instincts and help give them healthy boundaries around their bodies. Thank you. So, any movement that preaches to women and children to trust what the strange man tells you about his identity before trusting your own instincts is a predatory movement. So, I made this meme using the Little Red Riding Hood image because Little Red Riding Hood is a story that represents one of the oldest cautionary tales that we have about learning to trust your own sense perceptions above trusting a stranger's superficial presentation. The story of Little Red Riding Hood originated back in the 1600s rather, and this story has had lasting influence to this day because of its very vivid and clear safeguarding message. So fairy tales have long been used to aid in child development, and they provide metaphorical ways for kids to develop their own consciousness around important psychological messages. And Little Red Riding Hood, at its heart, is a story of safeguarding in which a young girl learns to trust her own instincts, intuition, and sense perceptions. And these are the very basic tools needed for safeguarding. So, today I'm going to outline how these basic skills are being subverted by the doctrine of gender ideology, and specifically how they're being pushed at children in the public school system by teachers and by the adults around them. So, many of us here who will be here in this talk today are familiar with Abigail Schreier's very excellent book, Irreversible Damage. And this book outlines the very physical harms perpetuated by the gender industry. It also very much outlines how social contagion is a factor in kids identifying with this nonsense. So, since its publication in 2020, ROGD, or Rapid Onset Gender Dysphoria, has become a very recognized term, and many of us in the gender critical realm have been calling out the very physical harms that are being visited upon the bodies of non-conforming kids. These very physical harms being breast binding, double mastectomies, genital mutilation, sterilization, loss of sexual function, cognitive impairment, bone damage, many other increased health risks due to puberty blockers and wrong sex hormones, surgeries, ongoing medicalization. So these are terrible. But even for the kids who are lucky enough to avoid the lure of the gender unicorn as a medical path, there's an incredible amount of irreversible damage being done in the form of mass dissociation and instinct disruption. with the result that kids have been cognitively reprogrammed from their own sense perceptions and their own primary evolutionary instincts for safety. Okay. So as I've been thinking about this, and I've been thinking about this for a very long time, I've been thinking of the best way to ultimately describe this reprogramming. So I thought about brainwashing. Okay. Brainwashing is a term that refers to coercing someone to adopting a different set of beliefs. Now, this doesn't quite apply because what I'm describing isn't really an instinct of a child changing a held belief, but a child becoming more dissociated from their embodied responses. So, what I'm describing is really just as much a physical abuse because they're dissociated from their embodied instincts as it is an emotional and mental abuse. So, okay, so I also toyed with calling this kind of mass indoctrination a coercive control. Okay, and coercive control is a good phrase which we have that describes strategies that are used, such as pseudo caring tactics that appear attentive and thoughtful, while in reality, the perpetrator is just micromanaging the victim and kind of limiting their space for action. But again, this isn't just instances of controlling kids in a limited setting, but it's about a coercion on a massive scale. And lastly, I thought about calling this grooming, which many of us are calling out these kind of grooming tactics. There are grooming tactics that are being used. And grooming kind of covers those manipulative behaviors that an abuser uses to gain access to a potential victim. So grooming coerces the victim to agree to the abuse, and they use these tactics to reduce the risk of being caught. These tactics involve the escalation of boundary violations that will often go from kind of inappropriate conversations to inappropriate touch. But again, these are often not instances being used by those who are directly grooming the kids themselves, but just simply seemingly well-meaning adults around kids are using what I would call grooming tactics, but what's being done isn't exactly grooming. So again, none of these terms exactly cover kind of the breadth and the depth of the harm that's being done. And ultimately, when I'm explaining what's happening, it's really only covered by the term social engineering. Okay, and social engineering is the centralized planning and an attempt to manage social change and regulate future development and behavior of a society. And that I think is what we see happening here, because ultimately what is happening to these kids is, again, it's reprogramming them from their primary instincts, and this is going to have impact on all future generations, and especially the generations that we see right now. So I want to really underlie the fact that safeguarding children begins with reinforcing observable reality. Okay. So a lot of times we'll hear this sloganeering term that's used where we are told that we have to affirm kids. Okay. And what they're usually talking about here is affirming a delusion. So affirming a child's delusion that they are somehow, quote, born in the wrong body. But actual safeguarding begins with reinforcing or affirming basic reality structures, physical sense reality, material reality. Okay, it begins with affirming a child's basic sense perceptions, evolutionary instincts, and intuitions. So if we're looking back at that Little Red Riding Hood tale, okay, we want to affirm Little Red Riding Hood when she sees, grandma, what big eyes you have and what big ears you have and what big teeth you have. We would want to affirm her and say, yeah, he does have big eyes. He does have big teeth. He does have big ears. You are right. You are correct in your assessment of your basic sense perceptions of reality. So being able to rely on your own observations of reality, that's a primary safeguarding tool that we have. So I have collated a number of clips that I want to go through everyone with. And when we go through them, I want us to be thinking, I kind of want you to already have primed in your mind what child safeguarding actually looks like, so you can kind of pinpoint these tactics that the teachers are using to dissociate kids from their own primary instincts for safety. Okay, so I want to ultimately kind of break down a little bit the differences between instinct, intuition, and sense perceptions. So, instincts would include those behaviors that are evolutionarily honed. Okay, these are fight flight. Okay, fight flight. That's a primary instinct to all animals. Food recognition, that we recognize what food is, that's a primary instinct. And also sex recognition, it has to do with species propagation, and this is a primary instinct. All of these things that we're talking about, instinct, intuition, sense perceptions, all of these I would just want to say are basal ganglia level brain functioning. Okay, so these are, it's back in what they call kind of the lizard brain. That's how they kind of colloquially refer to this. But these are basal ganglia brain functions. So these are functions that happen before any cognitive functions take place. So our prefrontal cortex, so our basal ganglia, I want to say, is this is a billion-year-old part of the human brain, whereas the frontal cortex is a much newer evolutionary part of the Homo sapien part of brain functioning, and the frontal cortex has to do with our conceptualizing functions. So this is where our rational analysis, our logic, any of our processes that are abstracting or conceptualizing. So our ability to read and understand alphabetic language systems, for example, is a prefrontal cortex cognitive process. Okay, so this is a process that requires us to think in linear, sequential, abstract ways. Okay, so anything that gets us to think in a linear, sequential, abstract way, this is very plotting. Okay, these are thought processes that can only take place over time. For us to analyze what something is, to kind of see something. So when we do a lot of our scientific processes, when we're breaking down, like when we dissect an animal per se, we dissect it, we cut it apart, we look at it in parts. Okay, this is what we do when we this is plotting. This is looking at something part by part in a linear sequence of events. And to analyze it, you have to look at it part by part. But this is a lot slower of a brain processing function because it can only happen over time. When we read a sentence, which is, or listen to a sentence, which is how we process language, again, it can only happen in a linear sequence over time. Okay, but our primary perceptions, so our primary perceptions, which are back in that basal ganglia part of the brain, are instantaneous. So our instincts, our intuitions, and our sense perceptions are instantaneous. Okay, so we covered what instinct is. Instinct is fight, flight, food recognition, and sex recognition. I think there's some other things covered a little bit in instinct, but those are the primary ones. Intuition. Okay, intuition, these are all interrelated processes, but they're all a little bit different. Intuition rather, which is what we're going into, covers kind of knowing something without knowing why. So it's picking up on our unconscious clues from the environment. So these are the peripheral clues. And a lot of times people will have these things where, you see something out of the corner of the eye that you didn't know that you see, and later it kind of fully kind of comes into your awareness and you respond to it. So these are picking up unconscious clues from the environment. They are understanding something immediately without the need for a conscious reasoning process. And they are the root, I want to say, of the word intuition is inter. Okay. And inter means to guard or protect. So our intuition comes in to guard or protect us. And it's these things where we like get a bad feeling from someone. Maybe you meet someone, you don't know what's giving you a bad feeling, and you go away. And later you can recognize the signs. You can do the conceptualizing and the analyzing later. Later you can analyze, yeah, that guy was looking at me funny, or I noticed that he was following me to my car, or you can later analyze like the point by point sequential events that were causing you to have this intuition, but in the moment you're simply having a response like, I need to get away from this guy. And sense perceptions, going into sense perceptions, they're just what they sound like. They're the information given to us by our direct sense of them. So these are our sight, our sound, our touch, our taste, our smell. Okay, those are the basic sense perceptions. And I wanna bring up two books, and these books are some of the books that I have read and continue to read. These very much are influencing me in this talk that I'm having with you today. Okay, so these books are The Gift of Fear by Gavin de Becker. Okay, and also his other book, which is Protecting the Gift, Keeping Children and Teenagers Safe. So Gavin de Becker gives us great insight on how fear as a primary instinct is a gift in keeping us safe. So when that fear instinct kicks in, it's there to help us. It's there to give us information. And being connected to our instincts is part of the safeguarding kind of, I guess, programming that we are naturally born with. I also want to just very, very briefly go into, if I see it here, where did I put this information? I want to go into embodiment. So the other backgrounding that I'm coming to this with is a phenomenological background, and Merleau-Ponty is kind of the main thinker that I go to. Heidegger is also excellent for this, but ultimately what phenomenology says is that embodiment is the essential element of human existence, okay? That we are our bodies. So we're not in our bodies, we are our bodies. Okay, we're not some disembodied, transcendental ego. We are not a mind, which is a machine. We're not a mind machine. We are our embodiment, and that ultimately the primary way with which we interact with the world around us is through our embodiment, okay? And that this conceptualizing function is secondary, and our primary awareness is the perceiving body. So this primary awareness comes before all of our conceptualizations, and in fact, ultimately, there is nothing to think about or conceptualize or know except through the direct perceptions of the body. So this analysis of embodiment is, it's really it's not only, it's primary in the sense of sort of this philosophical stance, but it's also really primary when it comes to safeguarding, because these spontaneous awarenesses are what connect us to these functions, and our sense perceptions are kind of our guidance system. So these sense perceptions that we have as adults, and especially as kids, these are a guidance system keeping us safe. So just like when I have a sense perception of my hand touching a hot pan and my hand recoils, and that's a guidance system to keep me safe, our emotional sense perceptions and our intuitive responses, our instincts, our intuitions, are guidance systems that are keeping us safe. Okay, so I'm going to cut over now to the some of the clips that I've collated. We're going to go through them together. I'm going to kind of do a side by side, and we're going to talk through how this programming is happening. And I think it will make you just as angry as it makes me, but we can look at it together. And ultimately, we're going to look at it with the knowledge that if we can break this down and analyze it, this is what is going to help keep us safe and keep kids safe. Okay, thanks.
I'm like very out at work.
Okay.
At least at my teaching job, I'm very out. I wear my pronouns and stuff, and I'm like, I like correct the kids, and the kids have gotten to like correcting each other.
What does that mean? What do you mean you correct the kids and they correct each other about your pronouns?
And it was like so awesome today. I was in charge of our like active activity, and one of the kids referred to me as a girl.
Because you are.
And one of my kids was like, Jamie doesn't have a gender. Jamie's not a girl. Oh my God. And like, the kid was just like, what do you mean? And she was just like, Jamie doesn't have a gender. Jamie is not a girl.
Okay, so let's break down what just happened here. A child said what they saw with their eyes. A child communicated their own basic sense perceptions of reality. That child basically did point and say. I'm pointing at it. I'm saying what I see. I am pointing at you. I see a girl. That's what that child did. That child was communicating their own sense perceptions of reality. And instead of affirming that child in their own basic sense perceptions of reality, she let another child correct the first child and give them some sort of nonsense sentence. That this woman doesn't have a quote gender. Now I don't even know what she means by gender, but she communicated ultimately to the child that she is sexless, that she somehow is a human being who is unsexed, so or unmoored from reality. That is what she just told this child. That is what she's been communicating to the children, and now they are telling it to one another. That's what we're hearing her say.
I like the way that has me is so emotional. Like, she like even like said the pronouns to him. Oh my God. She was like, Jamie's they. She's 8.
She's 8. She is 8 years old. And you have now reprogrammed her to deny her own sense perceptions of reality. And she's telling this boy now that he should dissociate from his own sense perceptions of reality. 8-year-olds. So instead of them going out into the world, being able to trust their own bodies and their own senses, you are reprogramming them. You are engineering them to dissociate. And now you're having some kind of cult like emotional response because you have successfully indoctrinated them to deny the reality that they see in front of their face, and you're gloating over it. This is sick, and women like this teacher should be called out.
My 52-year-old parents still fucking call me she after being.
Yeah, your 52-year-old parents have boundaries. So they refuse to deny the reality that is in front of their face. So good on your parents.
For 3 years. And I just told really started correcting the kids back in September.
So she's telling us that that's how fast you can groom a kid. I guess basically it's as easy as stealing candy from a baby. You can reprogram a child to deny their own basic sense perceptions if you just work at it a very few months. You can reprogram a kid. She's crying, and I'm just disgusted with this emotional response level that she's having.
That was so awesome. That was just so awesome.
It wasn't.
I've never felt more loved than when I am with my kids.
She's never felt more loved than when she successfully coerced a child to deny the reality that was in front of their face. She has dissociated that kid from their own bodies. And she's saying that is making her feel loved. That is very sick. That is very, very, very sick.
They correct each other. Are you kidding me?
This is illness. Absolutely. Okay, let's look at a couple more. These are, it's going to be like this. Okay, I'm going to go through some of the rest of these a little more quickly because I think you're starting to get the idea. I just want to include them because I guess these are some of the more frightful examples. I'm going to kind of let it run, and then I will give some commentary at the end of them, or at the end of each one.
This has been my first year in preschool with a class of my own, teaching alongside another queer neurodivergent educator, and we have been rocking our twos class. We've been talking about gender and skin color and consent and empathy and our bodies and autonomy. It's been fabulous. But our teaching team is shifting, and a new person is being onboarded, someone with many years of experience. So today at the lunch table, when the topic of gender and genitals came up...
Why was gender and genitals coming up with 2-year-olds? Why was genitals a topic of conversation at the lunch table with 2-year-olds? Gross.
One of our students plainly looked up and said, "Well, I'm a girl today, but I know that teacher Co isn't. No, they're NB." And the look on the incoming teacher's face was priceless. She was shocked in a good way. And she just looked around at the two of us and said, "This class is incredible, and I am so impressed."
This is another example of these people getting so much glee from successfully indoctrinating kids. Why did a 2-year-old know the word NB? That is not a 2-year-old word. That's clearly coming from her. So clearly that is, grooming or indoctrination from the teacher to the child. That vocabulary is not natural to a 2-year-old. A 2-year-old has to be coached into saying such a word. And again, she's dissociating preschoolers from their own sense recognition. These 2-year-olds who don't understand hardly at all the world around them are now thinking that you can somehow be dissociated from your bodies. Anyway, I'm going to move on. Okay. Oops.
Yo, teaching is wild. I don't know what we were talking about, but one of the kids was like, that's impossible. You can't be a boy and a girl. And one of my other students is like, that's not true. Look at Miss Q. She's like a girl and a boy. Yo, teaching is wild.
So again, these are instances of teachers who have successfully coached their kids. Now the kids are coaching one another. We saw it in really, we've seen it in a lot of these videos so far, that what happens is the teachers are basically grooming or re-engineering these kids, and then they are being little prophets and telling it to one another. All right. I'm going to add this one, and oops, I'm going to push pause for a second. So this one, oh, I paused. Okay, this one I find really interesting because this is an instance of how we see the sort of indoctrination into this cult think happening in plain sight. So she's going back and forth with the kid, correcting them about the pronoun usage, and you're hearing the kid kind of formulate it in real time.
Close enough. We'll work on the grammar later. That's pretty good, though. I like it. Good, thank you. That what you're gonna call me from now on? Then Mandy.
Oops.
Call me from now on?
Then Mandy.
Them, the Mandy. I like it. I think it's pretty good.
Do we say them or they?
You would say they if you were talking about me and you were like, they are really awesome. Or if you said, I want to give this piece of candy to them. Get it?
I like your hair. They.
How about
I like your hair. Them.
Close enough. We'll work on the grammar later. That's pretty good, though. I like it. Good, thank you.
This woman, again, this is watching her reprogram the way kids are being able to experience the world around them in plain sight. All of this is very ill. I'm going to include this example. This isn't really a video. I was not able to find as many video clips of men who are grooming their kids, but this guy is obviously standing up in front of his class looking like a man, saying that the kindergartners were debating whether he was a boy or a girl, and he's basically implying with this tweet that they should infer, because he has a dress on, that they should know. But again, he looks like a man. You look like a man. Here are some other men that I wanted to show you, who are having their teacher call them by wrong sex pronouns. Yeah, him. Scroll. Him. Look at that jawline. Teacher. Him with his 5 o'clock shadow. Yep. It doesn't matter how much lipstick you're wearing. You're a man. Quit trying to associate kids. Him with his jaw and 5 o'clock shadow. Anyway, I couldn't find as many. I think these women teachers love their TikTok a little more than the man teachers. But you know, there are men who are also doing this work in schools, teaching kids to dissociate from their own sense perceptions of reality. And it's really disturbing and it's really sad. And this all it constitutes mass social engineering, mass reprogramming, mass child grooming, mass gaslighting about reality in plain sight. Okay, so this guy is a pretty disturbing man. He calls himself Vika Steele. He made an entire coming out video to share with his high school students, including him reading a children's book about being disembodied. I guess it's a, you know, it's like a trans children's book. So I'm not going to put us through the entirety of him reading this book to us, but I am going to let him explain this to us. Now, this is what he shared with his students when he quote unquote came out.
We are not just the cover of our own books. And I know that in our beautiful community, we love and honor each other, and that you will love and honor me as we move forward.
So he's, first of all, he's trying to use this metaphor that we have of don't judge a book by its cover. Now, he's basically saying that we're, you know, he's telling his kids that they're not allowed to, again, trust their own eyes and ears and what they are seeing in front of them. Obviously, we see a very clearly, we see a man in front of us. And first of all, book covers are made, first of all, to sell the book. So they are meant to give information about what is going to be inside of the book. Second of all, our bodies are not meat sleeves. You know, we're not a book sleeve. We are our bodies. The other tactic that he uses here right away is he uses an emotional manipulation tactic, saying, you know, we're all going to love each other. We're all going to respect each other. I know that we're going to, you know, love one another. So this is an emotional manipulation, sort of telling his kids right off the bat, if you don't go along with what I'm telling you now to go along with, then now you're somehow you know, not an empathetic person. You're not a loving person.
And now let me introduce myself anew. You've known me as the person who builds and helps you build. You know me as the person with the plants and the animals. You know me as the person in the science room. All of that's true. None of that is changing. But I am going to take my wife, Stella Steele's last name, and I am going to use not Mr. and not Miss, but Mix. So you can call me Mix Steele. Are you ready to go belly? This my little dog Belly. She's being a little good girl.
Okay, the dog is pretty cute, granted. So anyway, he's now announcing that he's going to be Mix. Just so you know, he eventually decides that he is going to go by Miss. And the thing that I want to tell you about this guy, it's not in this video, but what he starts doing is he starts using the students' bathroom. So not only does he use the wrong sex bathroom, he doesn't just go ahead and use the wrong sex bathroom designated to teachers. He starts invading the girls' bathroom at his high school. I'm going to read something that he wrote about it. This is an article. This is an excerpt from an article that he himself has written. He says, in January, I started using the same multi-stall bathroom as the women on my wing. And yes, I use the students' bathroom too. Women have used that bathroom for decades with no complaints. I used it. I am an open and out transgender woman. I stood up, I came out, and yes, I used that bathroom because seriously, can you just let us pee? Within days, a transphobic parent complained to the district leadership, and instead of following guidelines, our district rushed to change the policy so that I couldn't change the bathroom. And he says that this is transphobia. So, you know, this is, now he is a teacher, and now he is directly violating the boundaries that girls have around their bodies. So, I say this all the time. The whole reason that we have single sex spaces for women and girls is because of our bodies. We did not create these spaces so we could, for some way, enact our lady identities altogether. These are not identity spaces. They are spaces for the safety of bodies. And he tries to conflate it that adult female teachers have been using this for years, and no one complained about them. Yeah, no one complained about them because they're women. And as a girl, having a woman in my bathroom doesn't make me feel uncomfortable. Having a grown man in my bathroom does make me feel uncomfortable. And frankly, this argument that he puts up, like, I just want to pee. I just want to pee in the room as young high school females who may be getting their periods, who may not want me there. Sir, you could pee anywhere. There are plenty of bathrooms at that school that you could pee at. So the fact that you are specifically targeting girls is extremely disturbing and predatory, and everyone can see with their eyes and hear with their ears that you are a man, And again, this is very much a grandma, what big teeth you have scenario. This is a predator in plain sight. And anyway, just a little about him. He goes on to be a preacher. He's an ordained minister now. He has a TikTok that's like all him in lady clothes, saying prayers and whatnot. I don't know, whatever. That's just random information. Now you know it too. All right. Okay, so I want to go over some of the bathroom policies since we just did that guy. I want to go over some of the bathroom policies that we are seeing in schools. This is happening across the United States. This is happening in Canada. This is happening in the UK. I'm going to specifically show us a video that was taken from the Chicago Public School District.
Providing all schools with updated signage that makes our bathrooms more inclusive. It will identify the fixtures available in each restroom and make it clear that all restrooms are open for use by anyone who feels comfortable.
So what's happening is kids are being told basically they can go to the bathroom anywhere. So we no longer have designated, in many schools, they no longer have designated single sex spaces. Instead, they have these sort of open mixed sex spaces and gender identity spaces. So this school in particular, they still have, let's see if there's a picture of it.
By December 1st of this school,
they have a bathroom
to post this sign
plus. So that's a girls plus bathroom, and they have a boys plus bathroom. So kids are now being told that they can choose their bathroom based on this mystical identity which is their gender identity. First of all, which is absolutely undefined. I want to briefly show you guys some curriculum that is a definition of gender, even though, as we'll see, it's a very much a non-definition. So that was that little bathroom thing. I also have this. We don't have to. Let's see. So this is. Do you feel like someone is using the wrong bathroom? If you do, don't stare at them. Don't challenge them. Don't insult them. Don't purposefully make them feel uncomfortable. Respect their privacy, respect their identity, carry on with your day, protect them from harm. So this is insane. So ultimately, our young girls are being taught that they do not deserve boundaries around their bodies, and they are not meant to use their senses to protect them. So if you feel like someone is in the wrong bathroom, instead of crying out for help, instead of getting out of the situation, instead of protecting yourself, these girls, you're supposed to protect the other person. You're not supposed to challenge them, or I'm sorry, stare at them or challenge them. So this is insane. So like when this adult man goes into these girls' bathrooms, they're being told, first of all, that they're not supposed to see what their eyes are seeing, and they're not supposed to challenge someone who is violating their boundaries. And in fact, they have a duty to protect the other person. Here's another example of this signage. So that's outside a bathroom stall. This is another sign that is outside a bathroom stall. Do you feel like someone's using the wrong bathroom? Don't stare at them. Don't challenge them. Don't insult them. Don't make them feel uncomfortable. So that's actually from a university and not from a public school. It's a university in Wisconsin that put that up there. But ultimately, like these children are being groomed from kindergarten up into their young adulthood. And again, girls are very specifically being told that they do not deserve boundaries around their bodies. Now, you cannot keep yourself safe if you do not have boundaries around your body. And you can't keep yourself safe if you are not allowed to trust your own sense perceptions of reality, and if you cannot use your given senses. So we have these senses for reasons of safety. We're supposed to use our eyes and our ears and remain alert to danger. And this is how our instincts are able to kick in. And now, instead of teaching kids to use this instinctual alert system, kids are being groomed to ignore their own senses. And in fact, that it's their responsibility not to make the violator feel uncomfortable. And that other one was even worse, to protect the person who is violating their boundaries. This is very disturbing reprogramming. This is very disturbing social engineering. All of this kind of thing leaves kids open to predation. It leaves them vulnerable to grooming when they can no longer trust what their eyes and their ears are telling them about the world around them. And they're being told that they need to basically listen to what strangers have to say about themselves rather than being able to trust themselves. Now, I want to just further mention right now that we have examples of girls being raped and sexually harassed and sexually molested in their schools. In Loudoun County, Virginia, there was a boy who was saying that he was quote, non-binary, which falls under one of these transgender identity policies, who was using the girl's bathroom and in fact raped a girl, sodomized a girl, and sexually molested a girl in the bathrooms. The girl that he raped complained. Instead of him being charged, he was transferred to another school where ultimately the same thing happened. Now, women, feminists, radical feminists that I know did protests in Loudoun County. Parents protested, but this is a terrifying message that we are teaching our young girls, is that they do not have the right to name boys as boys, and they do not have the right to say no to boys in their spaces if for some reason those boys use magic words about their identity, that these magic words that boys are using grant them access. And this is, of course, it's just it's so upsetting and terrifying. So one of the other things that is happening with the teachers who are indoctrinating your kids into this ideology is they are keeping secrets. So they are, one, telling your kids that it is appropriate to keep secrets from their parents. And two, they are openly telling their students that they are willing to keep secrets from the parents. So this woman is going to tell us a little bit about that.
This whole "they're my children" argument is toxic parenting. They are first and foremost their own person who has their own thoughts and feelings. And to take that away from them just because you decided to give birth to them does not mean that they are not their own person with autonomy over what they're called. If you tell me to call them A, but they ask me to call them B, their wishes come first, because children are capable of making decisions for themselves. This is bad parenting. You should not have the right to just completely disregard what your child wants. It's shameful.
Kids are not autonomous. They are minors and they are dependents, and they live with their parents because their parents are their providers. Kids do not have the autonomy to make their own decisions. We do not allow kids to get face tattoos, for example. So, parents having boundaries is appropriate. We do not let kids drink alcohol. We do not let minors, under the age of 16 drive cars. They are not autonomous beings. They are dependents. Her notion, wait, what does she say in the beginning again?
This whole "they're my children."
Oh, this whole "they're my children" argument. That's hilarious. If you have given birth or are a parent, caregiver to a child, they are your children. That's the role of the parent is to give a kid boundaries. And what these adults unfortunately are teaching kids is that they don't require boundaries. So here's the thing: we can't have we can't create kids who have appropriate boundaries without modeling boundaries for them. We can't teach kids to have appropriate internal authority unless we model authority for them. And and second of all, keeping secrets, that is grooming behavior. Okay. The people who want children to keep secrets from their parents, or who help keep the secrets of kids, that is necessarily predatory. And one of the things I think is great, I want to reference Gavin DeBecker again. If I'm going to hopefully find this, I should have opened to it before I opened this video. Well, I'm just going to say it off the cuff. He basically outlines 12 different things that we can follow to help keep kids safe. And a huge one is tell. so that kids need to be able to be in direct communication with their parents. Parents should be saying to kids ultimately that the kids can tell me you can tell me anything, my kid can tell me anything, and that it is not appropriate for kids to keep secrets for adults, and nor is it appropriate for adults to keep secrets for kids. One of my dear friends, Jennifer Cohn, who works for Partners for Ethical Care, often will speak about this, and she talks about the power of mothers. Anyone who wants should watch the Power of Mothers podcast that she does. And one of the things that she says is no one is going to love my child more than me. No one loves a kid more than their parents. And it's really urgent for kids to understand this, because they need to be able to think critically and they need these notions in their head. So when adults like these teachers are telling them these things, they can question it and they can immediately recognize it as the safeguarding failure that it is. Anyone who is telling kids that they love the kids more than the parents, that's a problem. I want to share this other video. This is a guy, if I can find him. Okay.
Okay, so like I said, Teacher Appreciation Week is tomorrow, this week. You got 2 days left because I've been giving you all year, right? Okay. Second announcements. Okay, what's this Sunday? No. So like I love y'all like my own kids, right? If I had kids, I would love y'all like my own kids. But I love y'all like my own kids, right? And I'm basically raised y'all all 4th grade year, right? I've been teaching y'all not just math, but manners and how to do things and life skills, right? Right? Okay, so I love y'all, right? What is this Sunday? Mother's Day. So I expect a Mother's Day gift on Monday, okay? I've been raising y'all all 4th grade, Mother's Day and Father's Day. Mother's Day and Father's Day, okay? Question about Mother's Day, gifts. Okay, yes. Shirt size medium.
So this guy is telling 4th graders that he's their mom, that they should get him Mother's Day presents because he's their mom. This is very scary. We see this in other. This is highly inappropriate. I hope that one of these kids went home and told their parents, and their parents intervened, because this is highly inappropriate. First of all, he's like soliciting gifts from his kids, but the other thing is he's telling them that he loves them like a parent, and that he is like a mom, and that he has been mothering them, and that they should get him a Mother's Day gift. This is all very sick. This is all very disturbing. This is inappropriate. This is crossing boundaries. This is predatory, very predatory. Okay, so we've seen a lot of teachers here today doing a lot of this, what is more, I was going to say inappropriate behavior, but this is far deeper and far more concerning than inappropriate behavior. And what I've collected here is a few handfuls of examples. But this curriculum that these teachers have in the classrooms, I've shown this is going from preschools to kindergartens to elementary schools to high schools to the colleges. So this this curriculum is all over the place, and ultimately it constitutes a mass social reengineering from a society that is embodied, that is are fully embodied human beings, fully sexed human beings, into a notion of disembodiment. So the notion, I mean, gender for one is it's undefinable in their own curriculum. I think most of the curriculum defines gender as feeling differently than the sex you were assigned at birth. So that definition, first of all, is a non-definition. It's a tautological definition, in that it circles on itself, and it's not giving any defining characteristics of what gender is, except only to use sex-based stereotypes. Of course, feminist analysis has been critical of gender role typecasting, sex-based stereotypes, all of these things from the beginning. And you don't have to have a feminist critique of the world to understand that these stereotypes that surround our sex, pink is for girls, blue is for boys, in many ways, these things are confusing and also harmful. So to assert to kids, that if you don't like your haircut, or if you use magic words, you are somehow no longer a fully embodied, fully sexed human being. This is this is it's a brain reprogramming. It's a cognitive dissonance, and it's ultimately a mass social engineering project, which we all must stand up and stop. Those of us who are able, those of you who are parents, who have kids in the schools, you need to be very clear. You need to be preemptive with your kids about what this doctrine is doing, and you must be assertive and boundary setting with your kids about this. Now, one thing that I always talk about, this is why pronouns in themselves are not benign. Okay, pronouns are not benign, and using them is not benign. So these teachers who are asking their kids to use them, they're ultimately asking kids to dissociate from their primary sense perceptions, from what they are seeing with their eyes and their ears. And when the adults in the room are using them, anyone who still uses them because they want to be nice, ultimately you are participating in child grooming. You are participating in a mass social engineering project. So if you are a person who cares about the kids who are being genitally mutilated, who are getting their breasts cut off, who are being sterilized, and are becoming medical patients for life, if you care about this, you must not participate. Participation is perpetuation. So anyone who wants to stop this must refuse to participate, so that you do not perpetuate these harms, rather. So I want to just, I think I've said it a lot, but I want to say it again, that these primary self-protection tools are the instincts, the intuitions, and the sense perceptions. And I want to really underline the fact that the reason that these are such good safeguarding tools is because they are instantaneous responses. These are natural and instantaneous responses that we have. When there's an animal in nature, animals in nature, if there's a rabbit and a rabbit sees a wolf, the rabbit doesn't sit around trying to figure out the personality style of that wolf, or if the wolf is using some magic words to describe himself. The rabbit simply runs. The rabbit trusts its primary instincts and takes care of them. Now, this is not to say, I get accused all the time that I think that quote unquote all trans people are predators. One, I don't believe in the notion of trans people. I believe that there are indoctrinated cult members. There are no human beings. Jennifer Billick lays this out beautifully. She has beautiful analysis around this. There are no human beings who are unsexed. There are no human beings who are unmoored from their own bodies. So when I use sex-based words, including sex-based pronouns, I am not projecting any magical qualities onto those bodies. I am using them simply in the way that the scientific categorization of all organisms exists to talk about form and function. So I am talking about an organism's form and function, just the way that I would use the scientific categorization of organisms to talk about fungi or plants. I use that same system to talk about animals. Humans are an animal. We are included in that. And we can be categorized by material reality, by our physical form and function. So every single human being that exists is a sexed human being. So I don't necessarily think that cult members are naturally predators. However, I do think that the cult itself is predatory, and that current cult members are participating in something that is very predatory. And that this is very dangerous to our kids, because what this is doing, as I said, it dissociates kids from their primary sense responses, and it causes a cognitive dissonance. Okay, so I said earlier, I spoke about the difference between that basal ganglia, a part of the brain, which has awarenesses that are instantaneous, and the prefrontal cortex, which is plotting. It's linear, it's rational, and it takes time. It's also very judgmental. And ultimately, when kids are indoctrinated into this kind of cognitive dissonance that happens, it really wastes valuable reaction time. Okay, so as a woman, if I see a man come into my bathroom, I should be able to react immediately. I should rely on my own instincts. I should rely on my own eyes and ears, and I should react immediately. A man who comes into my bathroom is showing me that he's willing to violate my boundaries. So he's already violated the boundary of my space. Why would I trust him not to continue to violate boundaries? He's already proved that he is a boundary violator. So I should simply react. I should scream. I should run. I should call him out. I should call for help. However, what is happening with this indoctrination program is it causes cognitive dissonance. So instead of just relying on my instincts and responding, what is happening for kids is that now there's a cognitive dissonance. Now I have to look at the person. I have to question whether or not they have violated my boundaries, because I don't know the magic words that this person uses about themselves. So instead of trusting myself, I'm having a cognitive dissonance. I'm not reacting in the moment spontaneously. I'm losing valuable time trying to mentally analyze what is going on. And the fact of the matter is, it is not my job to mentally analyze the style choices that a man is making. It doesn't matter. I don't care why he has decided to dress himself in that way. I don't care why he may have decided to get breast augmentation. It doesn't matter. His style choices are not my responsibility. My responsibility is to myself. And this is what kids also need to know. Their responsibility is to themselves, to their own self-protection, and to their own senses. Again, even on that most basic level, even if no one is trying to harm them in the moment, it is harmful to try to get them to dissociate from reality, to believe that humans are somehow disembodied, that we're not fully embodied humans, that we're not fully sexed humans. So that in itself is a predation. That's predatory. That's abusive. So all of this, what we've just seen, these teachers, what they are doing constitutes child abuse in plain sight. Okay, and this is coming from the top down. This comes from our federal government. This is in the curriculum. And I don't, there are many of us who are fighting this on a legal level. There are many of us who are protesting. There are many of us who are speaking out at school board meetings. If you are someone who wants to get more involved, you can speak out at your school board, and many of these school board meetings you can speak out at online. Many of them are done over Zoom right now, so you can attend these school board meetings and speak out online against this. I have done this. Many of my fellow activists are also doing this. It is not very hard. Contact me if you want to know more about legislation in your state. You can follow WOLF, which is the Women's Liberation Front. You can also follow WDI, which is the Women's Declaration International. And you can also just, do this. The research is not that hard to do. You can do it for yourself, but I think, it's urgent that we all find ways to speak out and to call this out, because a lot of times when there is pushback, for example, the Loudoun County case, while it was, it's incredibly tragic, there's really not a more worst case scenario than what happened to those girls. However, it did cause a lot of outrage. And because of that outrage, they changed their policies so that girls could have boundaries around their bodies and say no. And, again, I want to say that this is a nonpartisan issue. This is up to all of us. I do come with a radical feminist analysis, but that is because I agree with that analysis, not because the analysis has captured me. I also come with a background of phenomenology. I also come with a background of 20 years teaching experience. I also come, with a graduate degree and postgraduate work, all the way up to a dissertation that I didn't finish. But ultimately, I'm saying this to say that, I've done a lot of research on this issue, and to say that this issue is, it's incredibly important to me, but it should be incredibly important to all of us, because they are trying to ultimately dehumanize all of us. And you can, again, check out Jennifer Billick's 11th Hour blog, because she accurately describes how this ultimately is a move into transhumanism. So this is really coming for us all. The kids are the ones who are being socially re-engineered right now. We should all be deeply horrified and deeply concerned. We also still live in a culture where male violence is prevalent, and I of course, I believe, not all men, but mainly men. Men commit 90% of the planetary violence. We still live in a place where, 99% of all rapes are committed by men. And right now, these crime statistics are being misreported. We're seeing more and more crimes that are committed by the men who are using magic words to describe their identity, and the crimes are being reported as women's crimes. And then these men are being housed with women in prison, with incarcerated women who are trapped with them. This is all massive. It's all sinister. This is a $5.2 trillion industry, and all we have are a grassroots campaign to work against this. But we can do it. I do this not because I have lost hope, but because I do have hope. And I'm passionate that the adults in the room can stand up and do something about this. Ultimately, when I have, if I'm, working with kids, if I have a kid who's like, basically touching the proverbial hot pan. I don't want that kid to sit around and thinking, start be thinking with their cognitive brain, what's happening to my hand. I want them to respond. I want them to be in their bodies. That's why I do and will continue to do this work. These are my underlying value sets that I will continue to teach, and this is ultimately the work that I'm doing with Little Red Reverberations, is doing this skill building work with women, and we can all do it. There are lots of different ways that we can practice it, but we do need to practice it. These skills need to be developed into the culture. And I'm going to repeat them one last time because I love talking about them. These are the words of our embodiment, and this movement is a movement of dissociation. It's a movement of cognitive dissonance. It's a movement of dismemberment, objectification. And the skills and the tools that directly combat these things are embodied tools. And these are the tools of instinct, intuition, sense perception, and there's a lot of ways that we can practice them. We can practice them through our imaginative, creative practices. We can practice it in a lot of different ways, but we need to be skill building in these areas to protect kids. Anyone who wants to work with me more personally, you can look up my website in the show notes, and you can find me on Twitter at Known Heretic. You can find me on Instagram at Known Heretic. You are currently watching my YouTube at Known Heretic. I am on Facebook as Amy E. Souza. You can also find my other work, Little Red Reverberations, on Facebook as well. Thank you for being with me for this very long journey, and I hope that you learned something. I hope that you can take it away with you, and I hope that you will join me in instilling these values into our culture so that we can help safeguard one another, and specifically so that we can help safeguard the kids, our youth. All right. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.